Welcome Biology 161 students. My name is Haley and my presentation topic is on divisions of the peripheral nervous system, also known as PNS. The peripheral nervous system is cranial nerves and spinal nerves communicating lines between the central nervous system and the rest of the body. The peripheral nervous system is broken down into two divisions, a sensory afferent division and the motor efferent division. The sensory afferent division is somatic and visceral sensory nerve fibers conducting impulses from receptors to the central nervous system. The motor efferent division is motor nerve fibers conducting impulses from the central nervous system to effectors such as muscles and glands. The somatic nervous system is somatic motor voluntary responses conducting impulses from the central nervous to skeletal muscles. The autonomic nervous system is visceral motor involuntary responses conducting impulses from the CNS to cardiac muscles, smooth muscles, and glands. The sympathetic division mobilizes body systems during activity in the fight or flight response. The parasympathetic division conserves energy, promoting housekeeping functions during rest, known as the rest and digest. The peripheral nervous system is a nervous system outside of the brain and spinal cord consisting of nerves that exit or enter the central nervous system ganglia, linking the central nervous system to the body and to its external environment. The PNS detects sensory stimuli and delivers information to the central nervous system as sensory input. These include the following listed in the chart, such as connecting the central nervous system to organs, limbs, and the skin, allows the brain and spinal cord to receive and send information to other areas of the body, carries sensory and motor information to and from the central nervous system, and regulates voluntary bodily functions like heartbeat and breathing. The efferent motor division is motor fibers or motor pathways that are responsible for providing input to the central nervous system. The divisions are the somatic motor division, the visceral motor division known as the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, the flight or fight division, and the parasympathetic system rest and digest division. Afferent sensory division is sensory fibers or sensory pathways responsible for providing input to the central nervous system, so the neurons detect and transmit the sensory stimuli to the central nervous system. The sensory afferent division is broken into subdivisions known as the somatic sensory division and the visceral sensory division that will be talked about later in this presentation. Some of these include the five senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting. The terminal ganglia receive input from cranial nerves or sacrospinal nerves and are responsible for regulating the parasympathetic aspect of homeostatic mechanisms below the head and neck, incorporated into the wall of the target organ as the plexus, and receives input from cranial nerves that are found in the head, neck, thorax, and upper abdominal cavities. Afferent neurons carry sensory information from receptors in skin and other organs throughout the central nervous system through sensory neurons. Cell bodies are located outside of the spinal cord. So the skin, you receive information through the dorsal root ganglion to the dorsal root ram. Autonomic division regulates involuntary bodily responses by blood vessels. The somatic division, involuntary movement by skeletal muscles. Efferent neurons carry motor information from brain throughout the peripheral nervous system through motor neurons. Cell bodies are located in the ventral horn of the spinal cord. The somatic sensory is voluntary responses. Autonomic nervous system is involuntary responses. The sympathetic division is part of the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic division is part of the rest and digest response. All of these parts work together to reach homeostasis, a balance between the body's internal and external system. The peripheral nervous system and the sensory afferent division and the motor efferent division. The sensory afferent division is broken down into somatic sensory and general senses are touch, pain, pressure, vibration, temperature, and perception in skin, body wall, and limbs. And it's to hear, remain equilibrium, like a homeostatic state, and vision so you can see. Visceral sensory is stretch, pain, temperature, chemical changes, and irritation in viscera, and can cause nausea and hunger. And special senses include tasting and smelling. Motor efferent division, somatic nervous system, motor innervation of all skeletal muscles. Autonomic nervous system, motor intervention of smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and glands. And then the sympathetic division, the parasympathetic division. The autonomic nervous system is divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system divisions. These are responsible for the fight or flight response, which is the preparation of the body to either run away from a threat or to stand and fight in the face of that threat. The full response from start to finish will be discussed later in a different slide. The fight or flight response versus rest and digest response will be discussed multiple times in this presentation, but the fight or flight response is a sympathetic division that causes general alertness and excitement due to some sort of stimulus in the body's way of responding to a perceived threat. The rest and digest process of the parasympathetic division is a process of the body restoring itself to a calm, restful state. The sympathetic of the fight or flight response is the preparation of the body to either run away from a threat or to stand and fight in the face of that threat, as discussed previously. The steps are as follows. There is this response to a stimulus, responding for the physiological response to make that possible and hopefully successful. Getting spooked by someone jumping out of a room is an example of this. Adrenaline starts to flood your circulatory system. Your heart rate increases. Sweat glands become active. The bronchi of the lungs dilate to allow more air exchange. Pupils dilate to increase visualization. Blood pressure increases. Blood vessels dilate in skeletal muscles, and emotional responses as well. The parasympathetic division is part of the rest and digest process that takes place after the fight or flight stage. Your heart rate will slow, breathing will return to normal, effector organs are activated together, respiratory, cardiovascular, and musculoskeletal. The digestive system shut down so blood is not absorbing nutrients. More oxygen needs to be inhaled and delivered to skeletal muscles, and sweating prevents overheating of the body from muscle contractions. The human nervous system. There's the parasympathetic nerves and the sympathetic nerves. Some examples of these are listed, such as like your eyes, your lungs, your heart, organs. The ganglion is a group of neuron cell bodies in the peripheral, either sensory or autonomic, such as the posterior dorsal root ganglion. Efferent pathways are the somatic versus visceral systems in the nervous system. So the motor system has a visceral and somatic responses. Visceral is autonomic nervous system regulating internal body functions, and the somatic is voluntary control of skeletal muscles. Receptors are sensory receptors in the skin that sense extreme temperature and the early signs of tissue damage. An example of temperature is given in the next slide of the somatic nervous system. The somatic nervous system is a division within the peripheral nervous system that refers to a functional division that controls our conscious perception of the environment, our voluntary responses to that perception by our skeletal muscle, and what function happens. Take this example of someone touching a pot. The person's hand receives sensory input from the pot that sends a signal to the brain saying, "Oh, this is hot." This information is passed through the integration center and through the efferent neuron to the muscular junction to sense this. As the body senses this, the person's body contracts and causes movement due to the stimuli, resulting in the person lifting their hand off the pot so they do not further burn themselves. A visceral autonomic motor response is a neuron sending a signal to your sweat gland, causing the gland to secrete onto your body. Body temperature must remain at homeostasis, but if the temperature rises above normal, this causes the hypothalamus to sense the rise in temperature, sending signals to the nervous system. The signals are sent to the nervous system, and sweat glands receive signals and secrete sweat. The blood vessels receive signals and dilate. The preganglion neuron fibers are axons from the central neuron that project to a sympathetic ganglion, representing the output from the central nervous system to the ganglion by short myelinated fibers. The postganglionic neurons, the axon from a ganglionic neuron that projects to the target effector, represents the output of a ganglion that directly influences organ by long unmyelinated fibers known as sheaths. The sympathetic chain ganglion is constitute a row of ganglia along the vertebral column that receives central input from the lateral horn of the thoracic and upper lumbar spinal cord. These help the body have a balanced internal and external state, also known as homeostasis. Effector targets of the somatic and visceral motor system of the autonomic nervous system. The effector of the somatic nervous system is skeletal muscles. The effectors of the visceral motor system are the following systems: respiratory, cardiovascular, digestive, urinary, integumentary, and reproductive organs. Functions of the four main branches of the nervous system: the somatic sensory afferent neurons that deliver information to the brain from our skin, muscles, and joints as pressure, vibration, light, touch, tickle, itch, temperature, pain, and perception. Visceral sensory afferent neurons that deliver information to the brain from all of our organs that are associated with involuntary motor action, blood vessels, heart, and digestive system. Somatic sensory controls voluntary movement by skeletal muscles. Visceral motor autonomic nervous system regulates the internal organs and involuntary responses. Locations of the autonomic ganglia of each branch: the peripheral nervous system, the afferent division, the autonomic afferent division, and the somatic afferent division. And the references. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps you on your exam on the 28th on Tuesday. Yep, the end.